Every pilot learns one truth early: authority without accountability is just arrogance waiting to fail. Captain Marcus Whitfield forgot that truth. And today, on Flight 731 from Paris to Dubai, he's about to remember. Because the flight attendant he just told to learn her place, she's not just any crew member. She's the person the CEO personally assigned to audit crew culture. And in the next 9 hours, every word Marcus says, every dismissive gesture, every power play will be documented, sent directly to corporate. Because Victoria Reeves doesn't need to learn her place. She's here to teach Marcus his. It's 11:45 a.m. Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, Gate K63. The Airbus A350 sits elegant at the jetway, registration F-HREV, bound for Dubai. 300 passengers, 7 hours flight time. The morning light cuts through terminal windows, casting sharp shadows across the boarding area. Ground crew completes final cargo loading. Everything appears routine, professional, safe. Captain Marcus Whitfield enters the crew briefing room like he owns not just the room, but the entire airline. 51 years old, 6'2", broad shoulders maintained through tennis and golf, 24 years with the company, 12 years as captain. His uniform is immaculate. 4 gold stripes, sharp against navy blue, pilot wings polished to gleaming, an expensive Swiss watch visible beneath his cuff. His face carries the expression of inherited authority, the look of someone who's never questioned whether he deserves his position. Marcus didn't climb through the ranks through exceptional skill, he climbed through connections. His father was a regional director with the airline in the 1980s. His uncle served on the board until retirement. Marcus grew up around airline executives, summer internships in corporate offices, fast-tracked through training programs, promoted ahead of more qualified peers because he knew the right people, made the right impressions at the right company events. He's not a bad pilot, just not an exceptional one. Average stick and rudder skills, adequate systems knowledge, sufficient decision-making under normal conditions. But he's never been tested, never faced a real emergency, never had to prove he deserves the 4 stripes he wears. What Marcus has mastered is politics, knowing who to impress, which executives to befriend, how to navigate corporate structures. He believes his connections make him untouchable. That upper management will always protect him. That complaints from crew members disappear because he plays golf with the right people. He's about to learn how wrong he is. Marcus enters the briefing room where his crew waits. First Officer Daniela Marquez, 35 years old, 6 years with the airline, competent, professional. She's flown with Marcus before, knows his style. Stay quiet, don't question, accept condescension as normal. 8 flight attendants stand along the wall, experienced crew, professionals who've worked thousands of flights. Among them is Victoria Reeves, 48 years old, 23 years with the airline, but her personnel file doesn't tell the full story. Victoria wears the standard flight attendant uniform, navy blue jacket, service pins showing her seniority, dark hair pulled back in a professional bun. She looks like every other experienced crew member, blends in perfectly. Nobody would guess she's different. Nobody knows that 3 months ago, the CEO personally called Victoria into his office, showed her internal data, crew satisfaction scores declining, harassment complaints increasing, hostile work environment reports piling up from specific captains. The airline was facing potential lawsuits, union grievances, FAA scrutiny if the pattern continued. The CEO needed someone to investigate, not HR, too formal, too obvious, not management. Crews won't talk honestly to supervisors. He needed someone on the inside, someone crews trust, someone who could observe naturally without raising suspicion, someone with human resources training. Victoria spent 5 years in the airline's HR department before returning to flight attendant duties. She loved working with people but hated desk work, wanted to fly again. But she retained her HR certifications, her knowledge of employment law, her training in workplace investigations. The CEO made her an offer: keep flying normal schedules, but also audit crew culture. Document captain behavior. Identify hostile work environments. Report directly to him. Confidential assignment. Nobody knows except the CEO and Victoria. She accepted. For 3 months, she's been flying with different crews, watching, listening, documenting. She's filed 3 reports so far. 2 captains received formal warnings. 1 was removed from flight status pending investigation. Today is her 4th assignment, Captain Marcus Whitfield. 3 prior complaints filed against him by flight attendants. Verbal abuse, public humiliation, hostile work environment, all dismissed by mid-level management who claimed insufficient evidence or he said/she said situations. But the CEO saw a pattern, sent Victoria to get the evidence. Marcus begins the briefing. His tone is formal but carries an undercurrent of condescension. He outlines the flight plan without inviting input, discusses weather patterns without asking for crew concerns, reviews security procedures like he's reading to children who can't understand complex concepts. When he addresses the cabin crew, his language shifts noticeably. He doesn't say flight attendants, he says cabin staff. He doesn't say crew members, he says service personnel. Small word choices that establish hierarchy. That separate flight deck from cabin, that make clear who leads and who serves. Victoria notices, takes mental notes. This is how it starts. Language that diminishes, tone that establishes superiority, the foundation for bigger problems. Marcus reviews the meal service requirements. The cabin crew should ensure efficiency. Passengers don't board this airline for conversation. They expect professional service delivered quickly and discreetly. Flight attendants should focus on task completion, not personal interaction. One of the younger flight attendants, Sophie, 2 years experience, asks about passenger special meal requests. She noticed several religious dietary requirements, wants to confirm coordination with the galley. Marcus's response is immediate, sharp. He tells her the meal manifests are clear. If she can't read a simple chart, perhaps she needs additional training. Sophie's face reddens. She nods, says nothing more. Victoria watches, documents mentally. Public humiliation over a reasonable question, disproportionate response, witnessed by entire crew. Marcus continues, he reminds the cabin crew that he's the captain, final authority on this aircraft. If he gives an instruction, it's to be followed without question. If crew members have concerns, they can submit them through proper channels after the flight. But during flight operations, his word is absolute. Then Marcus says it, the phrase that will define everything that follows. His exact words, learn your place. You exist to serve, I exist to lead. The room goes silent. Flight attendants exchange glances. Daniela shifts uncomfortably in her seat. Sophie stares at the floor. Victoria's expression doesn't change. Calm, professional, but inside she's already composing the report. That single phrase is textbook hostile work environment, clear establishment of demeaning hierarchy, reduction of crew members to servant class. The briefing ends. Marcus dismisses everyone with a wave, tells the cabin crew to prepare the aircraft. Boarding begins in 20 minutes. He expects everything perfect. As crew members file out, Victoria hangs back slightly. She approaches Marcus, asks a simple question about passenger load distribution, standard inquiry that any experienced flight attendant might ask. Marcus barely looks at her, tells her the load is properly distributed. She doesn't need to worry about things above her pay grade, just focus on serving drinks and smiling at passengers. Victoria nods, thanks him politely, leaves the briefing room. She's already documented 3 separate issues: public humiliation of crew member, demeaning language establishing hierarchy, dismissive response to legitimate operational question, and they haven't even boarded yet. Boarding begins at 12:15 p.m. Passengers file onto the A350. Business travelers heading to Dubai, tourists beginning Middle East vacations, families visiting relatives, 300 souls expecting professional service and safe passage. Victoria works the premium cabin, first class and business class. She greets passengers with genuine warmth, helps with luggage, answers questions about the flight. She's done this for 23 years. It's second nature. Professional, excellent. But she's also observing, watching how Marcus interacts with boarding passengers, how he responds when the gate agent asks a question, how he treats ground crew. At 12:40 p.m., a ground operations supervisor enters the cockpit. There's a minor issue with the fuel load. The scheduled amount is correct, but weather updates suggest stronger headwinds than forecast. The supervisor recommends adding 2,000 kilograms as a safety buffer. Standard procedure. Marcus's response is loud enough that Victoria hears it from the forward galley. He tells the supervisor he's been flying this route for 8 years. He knows the fuel requirements better than ground operations. The scheduled load is sufficient. Don't waste his time with unnecessary bureaucracy. The supervisor tries to explain the weather update. Marcus cuts him off. Tells him he's the captain, he makes fuel decisions. The supervisor can note his recommendation in the record, but Marcus isn't accepting additional fuel for a minor wind change. The supervisor leaves, frustrated, concerned, but powerless. Victoria makes a note. Captain refused reasonable safety recommendation from qualified ground personnel, cited authority without engaging with technical justification, potential judgment issue. Boarding completes. Doors close at 1:05 p.m. Pushback begins. The A350 rolls backward from gate K63. Engines start with their characteristic low whine. Modern, efficient, quiet. In the cockpit, Marcus runs through pre-departure checklists. Daniela responds to each item professionally. She's learned to work with captains like Marcus, acknowledge commands. Don't offer opinions unless asked. Keep your head down and collect your paycheck. But Daniela notices something. The fuel totalizer shows they're operating with minimum required fuel plus regulatory reserve. The headwind forecast has indeed increased. They'll arrive Dubai with fuel to spare, but not much margin if anything unexpected happens. She mentions this to Marcus, suggests they could still request additional fuel before taxi. Marcus's response is cold. He tells her he didn't ask for her opinion. He's reviewed the fuel load. It's adequate. She should focus on her assigned duties and let him handle captain decisions. Daniela nods, says nothing more, but she makes her own mental note. If anything goes wrong, she documented her concern. Paris departure clears them to taxi. The A350 moves through the complex taxiway system at Charles de Gaulle. Other aircraft queue for departure. 777s, 787s, A380s heading to destinations worldwide. Normal midday traffic. In the cabin, Victoria completes her final pre-departure checks. Seatbelts fastened, tray tables stowed, carry-ons properly stored, everything by the book. Professional, thorough. She notices Marcus makes a PA announcement to passengers. His tone is different than with crew. Warm, welcoming, professional. He thanks them for choosing the airline, promises a smooth, comfortable flight. Sounds like the perfect captain. Victoria notes the contrast. Professional with passengers who can't affect his career. Hostile with crew members he views as beneath him. Classic two-faced behavior pattern. The A350 reaches runway 26L. 11,000 feet of concrete stretching ahead. Evening sunlight cuts across the tarmac. Perfect conditions for departure. Marcus advances the thrust levers. 2 Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engines spool to full power. 76,000 pounds of thrust. The aircraft accelerates smoothly. V1, rotate, liftoff. Flight 731 is airborne. It's 1:32 p.m. Everything appears routine. Normal flight operations, professional crew, nothing unusual, except that every word Marcus says is being evaluated, every interaction assessed, every gesture of authority without respect being documented. Because Victoria Reeves isn't learning her place. She already knows her place. She's exactly where the CEO assigned her, watching, listening, building a case. And Marcus Whitfield, who believes his connections make him untouchable, is about to discover that some people answer to higher authority than middle management protecting their golf buddies. The A350 climbs through 10,000 feet. Paris falls away below. The Mediterranean stretches ahead. 7 hours to Dubai, 7 hours for Marcus to demonstrate exactly why 3 flight attendants filed complaints. Victoria settles into the jump seat during climb, opens her phone. creates a new note file, timestamps everything, quotes exact phrases, documents witnesses. She's done this before. She knows what evidence looks like, knows what will hold up under investigation, knows the difference between personality conflict and hostile work environment. Marcus Whitfield just provided her with both. And in 7 hours, when they land in Dubai, Victoria will send her report, not to HR, not to mid-level management, directly to the CEO who assigned her this mission. The same CEO who's tired of protecting captains who think authority means they can treat crew members like servants. Marcus doesn't know it yet, but his career just entered its final approach, and there's no go-around available. 30 minutes into the flight, the A350 reaches cruising altitude, flight level 390, smooth air, perfect conditions, autopilot engaged. The cockpit settles into the quiet rhythm of a long-haul cruise. In the premium cabin, Victoria begins meal service. First-class passengers receive their selections. Business class follows. The process is smooth, professional, exactly what passengers expect. But between courses, Victoria observes, she watches how Marcus interacts with the cabin through PA announcements, how he responds when flight attendants call the cockpit, how he treats crew members who enter with requests. 45 minutes into the flight, Sophie enters the cockpit. A first-class passenger has a severe nut allergy, wants confirmation the meal service can accommodate. She needs Marcus to verify the meal manifest doesn't have cross-contamination risks. Marcus doesn't look up from his tablet. He tells Sophie the meals are prepared according to standard procedures. If the passenger has allergies, they should have notified the airline during booking. Sophie explains the passenger did notify during booking. That's why she's verifying now. The meal manifest shows a special dietary code, but the passenger wants captain confirmation before eating. Marcus sighs loudly, tells Sophie to just give the passenger a different meal option. He's not reviewing manifests for every passenger with food preferences. Sophie clarifies, this is a medical allergy, not a preference. The passenger could have a severe reaction. Marcus's voice rises. He asks if Sophie is questioning his judgment. He told her to handle it. That means handle it. Don't bother him with cabin issues that crew should manage independently. Sophie leaves the cockpit. Victoria sees her distress, the uncertainty. Sophie doesn't know how to proceed. The captain told her to handle it, but she doesn't have the authority to confirm medical safety. Victoria steps in, she reviews the meal manifest herself, finds the allergy notation, confirms with the galley that alternative meals have no nut ingredients or cross-contamination risk. Personally, serves the concerned passenger and explains the precautions, but Victoria also documents. Captain refused to address passenger medical safety concern, delegated life-threatening decision to junior crew member without guidance, elevated voice, and questioned crew member's judgment for appropriate safety inquiry. 90 minutes into the flight, Daniela notices something on the fuel system display. Fuel consumption is slightly higher than planned, not emergency level, but trending toward requiring the exact buffer that ground operations recommended, and Marcus refused. Daniela mentions this to Marcus. They're burning fuel faster than forecast due to the headwinds. Might want to consider requesting a more efficient altitude or planning a fuel stop. Marcus dismisses it. Fuel is well within limits. They'll arrive Dubai with regulatory reserves. No need for altitude changes that delay arrival. Daniela points out the weather forecast showed this headwind pattern. The ground supervisor's recommendation would have given them more margin. Marcus turns on her, asks if she's second-guessing his fuel planning now. He's been captain on this route for 8 years. She's been a first officer for 6. Don't presume to educate him on fuel management. Daniela goes quiet, but she's uncomfortable. The fuel situation isn't critical, but it's tighter than it should be, and Marcus's refusal to even discuss it concerns her. 2 hours into the flight, Victoria enters the cockpit with coffee service. Marcus and Daniela receive their drinks. Standard service, professional. As Victoria prepares to leave, she asks a routine question. The cabin temperature feels slightly warm in the premium section. Several passengers mentioned it. Should she adjust zone controls, or is there a system consideration she should know about? Marcus responds without looking at her. He tells her if passengers are warm, they can remove jackets or request cold drinks. Temperature is set to standard parameters. She doesn't need to worry about environmental controls. Victoria clarifies she's not worried. She's asking because she has authority to adjust zone temperatures, but wanted to check if there's a technical reason before making changes. Marcus finally looks at her. His expression is cold. He tells her she's a flight attendant. Her job is serving passengers, not operating aircraft systems. If she's confused about her role, he can arrange retraining when they land. Victoria remains calm, professional, nods once, leaves the cockpit, but she's documented. Captain demeaned crew member for asking appropriate operational question, threatened retraining as intimidation tactic for normal inquiry, refused to engage professionally with experienced crew member. 3 hours into the flight, during the main meal service, an incident develops in economy class. A passenger becomes verbally aggressive with a flight attendant, loud, disruptive. Other passengers are uncomfortable. The lead economy flight attendant, Robert, 15 years experience, calls the cockpit, requests captain awareness. The passenger is not physically threatening, but creating disturbance. Robert wants guidance on whether captain wishes to intervene or if crew should handle de-escalation. Marcus's response is immediate. He tells Robert to handle it. That's what cabin crew is paid for. Unless there's a security threat requiring law enforcement, don't involve the flight deck. Robert explains the situation is escalating. The passenger is berating the flight attendant. Other passengers are watching. Company policy suggests captain awareness for passenger conflicts. Marcus cuts him off. He already said handle it. If crew can't manage a loud passenger, they shouldn't be flying. He expects the situation resolved without further flight deck involvement. Robert hangs up, frustrated. He and 2 other flight attendants work to de-escalate. It takes 20 minutes. The passenger eventually calms down, but the crew member who was berated is visibly shaken. Victoria witnesses the entire situation. She also documents it. Captain refused to support crew during passenger conflict situation. Company policy requires captain notification and availability for escalating passenger issues. Captain delegated entirely to cabin crew without offering guidance or backup. 3 hours 30 minutes into flight. The aircraft encounters moderate turbulence, not severe, but enough that seatbelt signs should be illuminated. Passengers should be seated. Daniela reaches for the seatbelt sign. Marcus stops her. He tells her the turbulence is light, brief, not worth disturbing passengers who are eating meals or using lavatories. They'll fly through it in a few minutes. Daniela points out regulations require seatbelt sign during any turbulence that could cause passenger injury. Marcus insists this doesn't qualify. He's experienced enough to judge turbulence severity. This is nothing. The aircraft hits a sharp bump. Coffee spills in the cabin. A passenger standing near the lavatory stumbles, not injured, but shaken. Now Marcus illuminates the seatbelt sign, makes a PA announcement about temporary turbulence, but the damage is done. The passenger who stumbled files a complaint card, wants to know why the seatbelt sign wasn't on earlier. Victoria witnesses it all, documents it all. Captain delayed, required safety procedure based on personal judgment against regulations. Minor passenger injury nearly occurred, created liability for airline. 4 hours into flight, Sophie returns to the cockpit. She has a question about duty-free sales procedures. A passenger wants to purchase a significant amount. Sophie needs to verify customs declaration requirements for Dubai. Marcus explodes. His voice carries into the cabin. He tells Sophie he's not a retail clerk. Duty-free sales are her responsibility. The airline provides training manuals. He expects crew to know their jobs without constant hand-holding. Sophie tries to explain this is an unusual situation. The purchase amount exceeds standard limits. Marcus tells her he doesn't care. Figure it out. That's what experienced crew do. They solve problems instead of running to the cockpit for every minor decision. Sophie leaves. Victoria sees tears in her eyes. Public humiliation. Excessive response to reasonable question. Victoria documents. Captain verbally berated crew member loudly enough that passengers heard, created hostile work environment, refused to provide guidance on legitimate procedural question. 5 hours into the flight, Daniela notices the fuel situation has tightened further. Headwinds remain stronger than forecast. They're still above minimum required fuel, still legal. But the margin is thin. She suggests they should notify Dubai operations, request priority approach to minimize holding, standard procedure when fuel is tighter than planned. Marcus refuses. He tells her notifying Dubai of tight fuel means filing reports, explaining decisions, paperwork. The fuel is legal. They'll arrive fine. No need to create bureaucratic hassles. Daniela presses slightly. She points out priority approach doesn't require emergency declaration, just operational notification. Marcus's response is sharp. He asks if Daniela is refusing to follow his commands, because that's what this sounds like. Insubordination. Daniela backs down immediately. She knows that word. Insubordination. It's a career killer. Marcus is threatening her. Victoria doesn't witness this exchange directly, but Robert does. He's delivering cockpit meals. Here's the entire conversation. Later, during a quiet moment, Robert mentions it to Victoria, describes what he heard. Victoria documents it secondhand. We'll need to verify with Daniela later, but if accurate, it's Captain using threats to silence legitimate safety concerns from First Officer. Extremely serious. 6 hours into flight, Victoria conducts her own quiet assessment. She speaks privately with each flight attendant, asks about their experience this flight, how Captain has treated them, whether they feel supported. The stories accumulate. Marcus has dismissed requests, refused guidance, berated questions, created an environment where crew members don't feel safe raising concerns. Sophie admits she's afraid to call the cockpit for anything, even legitimate operational questions, because she doesn't want to be yelled at. Robert mentions this is his third flight with Marcus. Same pattern every time. Condescending, dismissive. Acts like cabin crew are servants, not safety professionals. Another flight attendant, Marie, 8 years experience, describes a previous flight where Marcus publicly mocked her accent over the PA system, made passengers laugh at her expense. Victoria documents everything, direct quotes, specific incidents, witness names, timestamps. She's building a comprehensive record. This isn't one bad day. It's a pattern. Culture of disrespect, hostile work environment, abuse of authority. 6 hours, 30 minutes into flight, the A350 begins its descent toward Dubai. The fuel situation has stabilized. They'll land with adequate reserves, not comfortable margins, but legal. Marcus makes a PA announcement. Thanks passengers for flying. Hopes they enjoyed the service. Sounds professional, warm, the perfect captain. In the cabin, crew members exchange glances. The contrast is stark. Professional with passengers, hostile with crew. Two completely different people. Victoria prepares the cabin for landing, collects service items, ensures passengers are seated. Everything by the book, but her mind is composing the report, organizing observations, preparing evidence. Dubai approach clears them for descent. The aircraft descends through the night sky. City lights appear below, glittering, beautiful, one of the world's busiest airports. Landing is smooth, professional. Marcus's flying skills are adequate. Nobody can deny that. But flying skills aren't the issue. Treatment of crew is the issue, and Marcus Whitfield has demonstrated exactly why 3 flight attendants filed complaints. The A350 taxis to the gate. Engines shut down, systems power off, flight complete. 7 hours of documented hostility, harassment, disrespect, all recorded, all time-stamped, all witnessed. Marcus believes he had a routine flight, dealt with some minor crew incompetence. Nothing unusual, nothing that his connections at headquarters can't smooth over. He doesn't know Victoria isn't just any flight attendant, doesn't know she reports directly to the CEO, doesn't know that his belief in untouchability is about to be tested against documented evidence and executive-level accountability. As passengers deplane, Victoria begins writing her formal report, not on her phone, on her tablet, comprehensive, professional, detailed, every incident, every quote, every witness, every regulatory violation, every hostile interaction. This isn't a complaint. This is an investigation report, the kind that ends careers, and Victoria Reeves knows exactly how to write them. 24 hours after Flight 731 lands in Dubai, Marcus Whitfield is having coffee in the crew lounge. He's scheduled for the return flight to Paris. Same aircraft, different crew, just another rotation. His phone buzzes, email from corporate headquarters, subject line, required immediate return, executive meeting. Marcus reads it, frowns. Executive meeting, that's unusual. Probably some new policy implementation, always something. The email is clear, do not operate scheduled return flight. Deadhead passenger to Paris immediately. Report to CEO office within 12 hours of arrival. Marcus's stomach tightens. CEO office, not chief pilot, not flight operations, CEO. That's not normal. He calls his contact in middle management, the guy who's smoothed over previous complaints, protected him from crew grievances. Marcus asks what this is about. The response is terse, uncomfortable. His contact doesn't know details. Just heard there's an investigation, high level, CEO personally involved. Advice: get a union lawyer before the meeting. Marcus hangs up. His hands are shaking slightly. Investigation, CEO involved. This is serious. He boards the Deadhead flight to Paris, spends the entire 11 hours trying to figure out what happened, what complaint was filed, which crew member, what evidence they could possibly have. He arrives Paris, goes directly to headquarters. 14 hours after receiving the email, exactly as instructed, he's escorted to a conference room, not the CEO's office, a formal meeting room, corporate, sterile, intimidating. Inside, the CEO, the chief pilot, the director of human resources, the head of legal, Victoria Reeves. Marcus sees Victoria and his confusion is visible. Why is a flight attendant in an executive meeting? The CEO doesn't waste time. He explains they've conducted an investigation into Marcus's conduct on Flight 731 based on a comprehensive report filed by their crew culture auditor. Marcus looks at Victoria. Crew culture auditor. She was investigating him. The CEO continues. Victoria Reeves holds advanced HR certifications. She was personally assigned by the CEO 3 months ago to audit crew culture and document hostile work environments. Flight 731 was her 4th assignment. Marcus was specifically selected based on 3 prior complaints that middle management dismissed. Marcus tries to speak. The CEO raises a hand. Not yet. The CEO opens a folder. Victoria's report, 27 pages, single-spaced, comprehensive documentation of 7 hours of hostile work environment, 16 separate incidents, 12 witnesses, exact quotes, timestamps, regulatory violations, policy violations, professional misconduct. The CEO begins reading incidents aloud. Public humiliation of crew member Sophie for asking legitimate operational question, exact quote. If you can't read a simple chart, perhaps you need additional training. Witnessed by entire crew briefing. Demeaning language establishing class hierarchy. Exact quote, learn your place. You exist to serve. I exist to lead. Witnessed by 8 flight attendants and First Officer Marquez. Refusal to address passenger medical safety concern. Delegated life-threatening allergy decision to junior crew without guidance. Elevated voice questioning crew judgment. Dismissive response to fuel safety concern raised by qualified first officer, cited authority without engaging technical justification, verbal berating of crew member Victoria Reeves loud enough that passengers heard, created hostile work environment witnessed by passengers, threatened First Officer Marquez with insubordination charge for raising legitimate fuel concern, witnessed by flight attendant Robert Chen. The CEO reads for 15 minutes. Each incident, each violation, each witness, each exact quote. Marcus tries to interrupt, tries to explain, tries to claim context. The CEO tells him to remain silent. They're not done. The HR director takes over, explains that Marcus has 3 prior complaints in his file, all filed by flight attendants, all dismissed by middle management as insufficient evidence. Complaint 1, 14 months ago, flight attendant reported Marcus made demeaning comments about her appearance. Middle management determined no witnesses, he said, / she said no action. Complaint 2. 10 months ago, flight attendant reported Marcus refused to support crew during passenger conflict. Middle management determined captain discretion, no violation. Complaint 3. 6 months ago, flight attendant reported Marcus created hostile environment through dismissive language and public criticism. Middle management determined personality conflict, no harassment found. The HR director's voice is cold, professional, clinical. She explains those complaints weren't investigated properly. They were buried by middle managers protecting their relationships. But patterns don't disappear, they escalate. The legal director speaks next, explains the airline faces significant liability, hostile work environment claims, potential lawsuits from crew members, regulatory concerns about captain refusing safety recommendations. FAA could investigate the fuel management decisions. EASA could review command authority abuse. The chief pilot speaks last, explains that captain authority is sacred in aviation. It exists to ensure safety. Command hierarchy protects everyone, but authority without accountability is tyranny. And Marcus has demonstrated tyranny, not leadership. The room goes silent. Marcus is pale, sweating. This isn't a middle management meeting where connections protect him. This is executive level, CEO involvement, legal exposure. This is career-ending serious. The CEO asks if Marcus has anything to say. Marcus tries. He explains he was maintaining operational standards, expecting professional performance from crew. Sometimes that requires direct feedback. Maybe his tone was occasionally sharp, but he never intended to create hostility. He's been a captain for 12 years, never had a serious incident. His flying record is clean. The CEO's response is simple, direct, devastating. He tells Marcus that flying skills aren't the question, character is the question, leadership is the question, and the evidence shows Marcus fails both tests. The CEO presents Marcus with 3 options. Option 1, immediate termination for cause. Based on documented pattern of hostile work environment, refusal of safety recommendations, and abuse of authority, union can fight it, but the evidence is overwhelming. Likely outcome, termination upheld, pilot certificate reviewed by aviation authority. Option 2, resign effective immediately. Airline provides neutral reference, no public details. Certificate remains intact, but flying career with this airline ends. Option 3, accept demotion to first officer, complete mandatory workplace conduct rehabilitation program, 6 months probation with 0 tolerance for any complaints. Union oversight if successful, potential return to captain status in 2 years pending performance review. Marcus is given 24 hours to decide. The meeting ends. Marcus leaves corporate headquarters in shock. 12 years as captain, 24 years with the airline. His entire career threatened because of crew complaints. He calls his union rep, explains the situation, asks about fighting it. The union rep reads Victoria's report, whistles low, tells Marcus this is airtight documentation, 16 incidents, 12 witnesses, exact quotes, timestamps. This isn't he said/she said. This is professionally documented investigation. Union can fight it, but probably won't win. Evidence is too strong. Better to accept option 3, take the demotion, complete the program, try to salvage some career. Marcus spends 24 hours considering, talks to his wife, his lawyer, his remaining contacts at the airline who aren't avoiding his calls. Everyone tells him the same thing. Take option 3. The alternative is unemployment and possible certificate action. Marcus accepts the demotion. Effective immediately. Within 48 hours, company memo goes out. Captain Marcus Whitfield has been reassigned to first officer pending completion of professional development program. Crew members who experienced hostile work environment are encouraged to contact HR or union representatives for support. The message is clear to everyone in the airline. Connections don't protect you anymore. Authority doesn't excuse abuse. Documentation matters. Marcus enters the rehabilitation program, 8 weeks. Classroom instruction on leadership, workplace respect, crew resource management, communication skills, role-playing exercises, psychological evaluation, union monitoring. It's humiliating. Sitting in a classroom with managers and new hires, learning basic respect principles, being treated like someone who doesn't understand professional behavior, but it's also revealing. Marcus begins to see how his words affected people, how his dismissiveness created fear, how his authority without empathy destroyed crew cohesion. He doesn't become a different person overnight. Old habits resist change, but he begins to understand why 3 flight attendants filed complaints, why Victoria's report was 27 pages long. 6 months later, Marcus returns to flight status as first officer, under probation, every flight monitored, every crew interaction observed, zero tolerance for any hostile behavior. His first flight back, he's paired with a 29-year-old female captain, younger than him, less seniority, his former subordinate. It's the ultimate humiliation, following commands from someone he would have dismissed before. But it's also enlightening. She's professional, collaborative, treats him with respect while maintaining authority, shows him what leadership actually looks like. Marcus completes his probation. His reviews are acceptable, not glowing, but sufficient. He's flying, he's employed, he's survived, but he'll never be captain again. The airline makes that clear. Option 3 didn't promise restoration. It promised a chance to keep flying. That's all Marcus gets. Victoria Reeves, meanwhile, receives recognition she never sought. The CEO calls her to headquarters, thanks her personally. Her investigation prevented potential lawsuits, identified systemic problems in how middle management handled crew complaints, provided the evidence needed to enforce accountability. The airline creates a new position, Crew Well-Being Director, corporate level. Victoria would oversee all crew culture initiatives, handle harassment complaints, train management on proper investigation procedures, report directly to CEO. Victoria considers it carefully. The position means no more flying, but it means changing the culture that allowed Marcus and others like him to abuse authority for years. She accepts. Within 3 months, Victoria implements new policies. All crew complaints investigated by HR, not flight operations management. Anonymous reporting system, mandatory training for all captains on crew resource management and workplace respect. Regular culture audits by trained professionals. The changes ripple through the airline. Crew satisfaction scores increase. Harassment complaints decrease. Several problematic captains who were previously protected quietly leave or are removed. The airline's CEO presents the program at an industry conference. Other airlines adopt similar measures. Victoria's investigation of Marcus becomes a case study in proper workplace culture management. 2 years after Flight 731, Victoria speaks at a cabin crew union conference. Her topic, documentation and accountability in crew culture. She doesn't name Marcus, doesn't need to. Everyone in aviation knows the story. The captain who told crew to learn their place, the auditor who taught him his. In her speech, Victoria delivers a message that resonates across the industry. Her exact words, "Authority without accountability is abuse. Leadership without respect is tyranny. Every crew member, regardless of position, deserves professional treatment. When we document misconduct, we protect everyone. When we hold leaders accountable, we create safer skies." One captain forgot that, but thousands are learning that's how culture changes, one documented truth at a time. The audience gives her a standing ovation. Marcus Whitfield watches the speech online from his apartment. He's still flying as first officer, still employed, still paying his mortgage, but he's not the person he was. The rehabilitation program, the probation, the demotion, they changed him. Not completely, but enough. He learned that authority must be earned through respect, not demanded through position. He learned that crew members are safety professionals, not servants. He learned that documentation protects truth when power tries to hide it. He'll never be proud of Flight 731, never forget Victoria's 27-page report, never stop regretting the words he spoke. But he learned his lesson painfully, publicly, permanently. 3 years after Flight 731, the aviation industry publishes new guidance on crew culture and hostile work environment prevention. Airlines worldwide adopt Victoria's framework. Training programs teach her investigation methodology. It's called the Reeves Standard, named after Victoria. And somewhere in every crew briefing room, in every captain upgrade class, in every airline headquarters, the lesson is clear. Authority exists to serve safety. Leadership exists to serve crew. And anyone who forgets that will learn it the hard way. Marcus Whitfield learned, Victoria Reeves taught him, and aviation became safer because she did.